All right, I'm running up in this piece. Welcome to Kai Y7. It's the middle of the night, most places in the U.S. Not the U.S., really America. We're not united. We just attacked Iran. I had a feeling it was going to come very soon, not only because they mentioned it, but also with Pakistan fighting back on Afghan. This will be the time where a lot of like chaos is going on already. So it's going to be pretty interesting moving forward. So I'm gonna get right into a share screen.
Threatened military strikes against Iran if its leaders did not agree to its demands, including reining in its nuclear program. At the same time, we have seen the U.S. build up this massive force in the region as we were waiting for potential action from the president. Now, we also know that these diplomatic talks have been ongoing, but as of last night, the president expressed his dissatisfaction with the state of negotiations, saying that they need to make a deal and they don't want to go far enough. But the president, throughout the last few weeks, has been stressing that he wants to see diplomacy here. Just yesterday, he said they hadn't made a final decision, but he wasn't happy with the state of negotiations. But again, this also comes as, we have been waiting for the president to explain clearly to the American people about what his ultimate objective is. Is this about the nuclear deal? Is this about the ballistic missile program? Is this about regime change?
Selena Wang joining us from D.C. Thank you very much. And we want to go to Martha Raddatz, and who can explain. She has covered the region for years in that region. Martha, tell us the latest of what you're learning.
Well, what we know now, this joint strike between the Israelis and the U.S. is that U.S. strikes involve a mix of U.S. aircraft and Tomahawk cruise missiles fired by U.S. Navy ships in the region. So this is a large-scale attack. It does not appear to be this limited strike, one of those options that President Trump was given, and that option involved making a preemptive strike to bring the Iranians to the table and be on the side of what the U.S. wanted. But clearly those negotiations have really already broken down. I'm certain that the Iranians expected this. They knew those negotiations had essentially broken down. They knew from President Trump's public statements that he was not happy with where the negotiations were going. So this does, as Ian said, appear to be a larger scale strike that will probably last several days, if not weeks. There is one statement that the president made on that Truth Social video, and it was an angry posting, said, "We aren't going to take this anymore." The president said, and it's an extraordinary statement, "The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost and we may have casualties. That often happens in war, but we're doing this not for now, but we're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission." This is the first time we have heard the president say anything about this to the American people, to give this kind of warning to the American people. He has simply said that the U.S. will not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon, but he has not prepared the U.S. public or Congress for what may happen here. Again, the statement, "The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost and we may have casualties. That often happens in war," said the president, "but we're doing this not for now, but we're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission." Again, a reminder that just this week in the State of the Union, the president had said that the nuclear program was obliterated in the U.S. strikes last June. That is clearly not what the U.S. believes anymore. They believe that the Iranians are capable of building a nuclear weapon, and they are trying to stop that from happening. A reminder also that this was a president who came into office as America first. He did not want to involve the U.S. in wars, but so far these are the third strikes that the president has made since just being in office.
And Martha, Iran has definitely also talked about how it would respond if there were any strikes that were made again. We want to go to ABC News analyst and retired Colonel Steve Ganyard. Steve, with Israel making that first strike and along with the U.S. now entering that, what it calls that U.S. joint strike, and with the president's sobering message about U.S. troops, what does that signal to you in terms of the military buildup there, of how long this could last?
Yeah, Michelle, if you remember in Midnight Hammer, the previous attack on Iran, it was actually fairly low risk. We put lots of airplanes over Iran to make sure that the B-2 successfully get to their targets, and hitting the nuclear sites. Now, this seems to be much more widespread. We're getting preliminary reports of what appears to be decapitation strikes within Tehran, going after the leadership in Tehran, going after not only the theocracy, but the military leadership in Tehran. But there's also many strikes around the country that look like they're targeting missile sites. This has been the real worry about the ability of Iran to go back and retaliate against Israel and all of the U.S. allies within the Gulf. So the other concern besides nuclear sites and the leadership sites have been the ability for the Iranians to strike our allies and Israel with missile retaliation strikes.
And Steve, as Americans are joining us tonight across the country watching this unfold, we're seeing video from Tehran where...
All right, y'all. So the United States has just attacked Iran. Probably more of a joint effort on behalf of Israel, maybe. Yeah. Oh, my glasses. I'll just continue for now. I'll give some commentary. It is an open chat room. I'm pretty sure you probably didn't know we was at war. That helps. Hit the like button. Consider subscribing. Things to do with the community, astro, spirituality, and intimacy issues are mostly my main topics. We'll continue. And if not, get on out of here, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? It'd be funny how people want to come and get certain information and commentary, and then y'all be acting like little snobs. You could get the heck up out of here. Like dead ass. I figured that we might go to war now, if anything, to me, because we have Pakistan that just attacked the Taliban, right? So they're doing Afghan. They're right on the border of each other, and now we dropped the bomb. Trump mentioned last Saturday, but I was thinking now might just be the time, and it is. So I'm going to show some more of that, and then we'll get some more reactions and maybe more information as it comes in. Because as far as I know, we just got this report less than an hour.
Israel and the U.S. have entered into joint strikes targeting sections of Tehran. We don't know exactly what their targets are at this time, but what should Americans take away from this? We have a huge military presence across the region there, some 35,000 spread out. What does this mean for American families here watching? Everyone has a loved one who's in the military or knows somebody who is.
Yeah, the U.S. military has gone to great lengths in the past few days to make sure that any U.S. troops within the region that were vulnerable have been moved out of the region. So most of the aircraft we have there are to defend our allies in Qatar and the UAE and Saudi Arabia. We've flown in lots of anti-aircraft capability to bring down missiles and aircraft that might come in a retaliatory strike. So the U.S. has done a lot to lower their footprint within the region to take away any potential retaliatory targets that the Iranians may look to take down in the hours and days to come. I think the real point here in what the president was saying is that this is going to be a long-term effort, and this isn't just a pinprick. They're going after missile sites, they're going after nuclear sites. The president did mention naval sites, so down in the Strait of Hormuz, way down in the southern part of Iran, you have a very narrow channel where about 20% of the world's petroleum goes through every day. And so the Iranian Navy has had the ability to close that, which would have repercussions for markets and economies around the world if you took that much oil off the market. So the U.S. is hitting things that Iran could do to affect the rest of the world, which include nuclear sites, missile sites, the Navy that may be able to close the very strategic waterways that could affect the rest of the global economy. So a very interesting target set, much more in detail and much more widespread than we'd seen in previous strikes.
And Steve, I want to ask you, this is probably the biggest buildup in several decades. How does this compare to the Gulf War buildup?
Yeah, it's smaller just because the U.S. military is smaller since the Gulf War, but almost, Michelle, half of the deployable air assets that the United States has have been moved into the region. So a lot of air power in the region. The interesting part about this strike is that most of that air power has not been allowed to launch from bases in the region. So in UAE and Qatar and Saudi Arabia, they've said that you can't launch your aircraft from our bases to go after Iran. So much of what's happening now is coming off the USS. The two aircraft carriers in the region, one's in the Persian Gulf, or south of the Persian Gulf in the Indian Ocean. One is in the Mediterranean. So naval power, lots of cruise missiles. They are launched either from submarines or from destroyers. And so this is, at this point, a lot of standoff missiles. We're seeing some very interesting video of cruise missiles coming across Iraq. So these very low-level flying aircraft or missiles coming across and hitting various targets within Tehran. That's another part of this. This is very quite interesting. It's the first time in memory that the U.S. has conducted a daylight raid in the region. Usually, the cover of darkness is used to make sure that the Israelis or wherever it may be, or the Iranians wherever it may be, cannot see those missiles as they're incoming. So very unusual in many ways. It's also unusual. It's the first time that the U.S. has jointly and publicly said we're conducting strikes with the Israelis. In the past, it's always been a coordination, but a quiet coordination. But this is very public. This is a joint U.S.-Israeli effort, and it is targeted at the regime. The president has said, we want to change the regime. Another thought here is, does this mean that people are going to rise up in the streets, or is it just the U.S. and the Israelis are going to take down leadership and hope that the Iranian people overthrow what's left of the regime?
Steve, we know that there's been protests there in the last few months, and of course the regime had cracked down deadly protests. By any accounts, a U.S.-based human rights group says thousands of Iranian demonstrators were killed during that time. I want to ask you again how this compares just in the last year with the June strikes, where the president said that they obliterated some of the nuclear sites in Iran. We're here now, though, and the talks had failed, the 3 rounds of talks between the U.S. and Iranian delegations. How is it different of what the military is doing now with Israel than how it compared with June?
Michelle, I think we need to wait for a little bit more time until we can figure out what the U.S. has actually done. In the previous strike in Midnight Hammer, we flew B-2s over Iran. We flew F-22s, F-35s. There were U.S. aircraft all over Iran and hitting nuclear targets in Iran. So one of the things that we'll look to see today is where else has the U.S. been flying? We know that they're probably, given the number of cities where we're seeing explosions, we know that many more targets have been hit, a wider variety of targets have been hit, to include 6 or 7 different cities. Now, it doesn't mean that the U.S. is hitting the cities. It means that they're hitting, say, missile bases in those cities. So very different, at least in terms of the scale. Previously in Midnight Hammer, in the previous strikes, the president was very clear. It was going to be one and done, sort of get in, get out. B-2s will hit the nuclear sites. We launched a bunch of cruise missiles. This sounds like it's going to be a weeks-long campaign.
And that's exactly what Martha Raddatz had alluded to, too, with what the president is saying. And Steve Ganyard, thank you very much. We do want to take you to Florida to Mar-a-Lago, and we're going to catch President Trump speaking, and we're going to take him in progress.
People. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria to Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal, something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that, with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or, in the alternative, face certain death. So, lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass. May God bless the brave men and women of America's armed forces. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless you all. Thank you.
You've been listening to President Trump speaking from Mar-a-Lago about the U.S. joint strikes with Israel in Tehran. Those strikes occurring in the past 2 hours, if you're joining us. The president laying out a foundation of a possibly prolonged war in the region. Let's go to ABC's Martha Raddatz with reaction. Martha.
That was an extraordinary statement. It is clear we are not doing limited strikes. This could last. We do not know how long.
Anyone just tuning in, as I have on the screen, we are at war. So we got America at war with Iran. And just a couple of days ago, we had Pakistan that just attacked or retaliated back against Afghanistan right along the border. So there's a lot going on, and this probably just adds more strategy because we got other foreign wars going on too. So I'm doing is catching some live reactions and showing what's going on and just giving some commentary. I put a poll in the chat, and if that's not for you, then this ain't for you. So I don't know what to tell y'all. Do what you're gonna do. Hit the like button. So consider subscribing. This is a good channel, not something to just jump on. Anyway, I'm Kai Y7. Thanks for coming through. Those that do support and will support the channel. I put a poll in the chat. I want to see where we at with that. Almost got 100 votes. Oh, over 100 now. Okay. So I put a question in the chat that reads, do you agree with very low. Do you agree with the U.S. versus Iran war? Yeah, about split down the middle almost. 43% say yes. Somebody must be playing around. I'm not going to play around with the answers like that. 42% of y'all say yes. 53% said no. I added a third because we know that this is about who? This is really about Israel or what? So for if Israel is involved, 5% say you agree with it if Israel is involved. That's funny. So a lot of this is was already building up. There's a lot of us that feel we know where this is coming from, and it's not necessarily a U.S. thing. It's more of a Israel thing. So we'll go right back into it. Just a moment. See, people like to sit their big old self somewhere and just reap benefits or try to hide. Y'all don't want to give back to no channels. That's weird. It's an open chat room. Blah blah blah. you get your information, it helps to participate. If not, you can go on another channel and catch what they got going on. Feel free. Feel free.
But the U.S. is now at war with Iran.
After 4 decades, the president said, reacting to everything that's happened from the hostages taken back in the 1970s, also leading up to the recent protests in Iran. Steve Ganyard joins us again. Steve, give us an idea. He also had a message, the president did, for those in Iran.
Yeah, Michelle, I think what's interesting here is that the initial strikes that we saw were cruise missiles. So because it's daylight, we'll have to see what happened, but I don't think that the U.S. would have put U.S. aircraft over Iran during daylight hours. Just makes it too easy for the Iranians to get a lucky shot here or there. So we'll need to watch where the targets were. We do know that many missile sites have been hit. It appears perhaps that one of the nuclear energy, the civil nuclear sites down in Bashir, down in the Persian Gulf, may have been hit. Will be interesting to see if some of the naval bases around the Strait of Hormuz were hit, but the president made it very clear. This is a decapitation effort. It's a regime change effort, and the whole point here is for the Iranian people to rise up and to overthrow the theocracy that is.
All right. So do y'all feel that the U.S. got it right? We got it right being over there, or is this a bunch of cap? A bunch of nonsense. They keep saying they want to decapitate Iran. I don't like the choice of words. I don't know about y'all, but I don't know. But when it comes to foreign affairs, anyone that's been around that actually has been around helping support a little should know how I feel about foreign affairs. I like getting into that, but I like to know the real source. So there's a lot of people that don't agree with the war, and honestly, I think there's more people that don't agree with the war than that do. So I'll check back on the poll in a little while, and I'll go ahead and let the news do its thing, and I'll see what you guys are saying in the chat. Click like. You can engage. It's an open chat room. If not, this probably isn't the channel for you. I'm not looking just for, it's going to be a lot of people running out. I get all that, but it helps to participate. If you got any thoughts going on in that brain of yours, this kind of helps stuff get together. All right. Because our leaders don't have it all. If they did, we wouldn't be at war. We wouldn't be all over the place. So ununited, like all of y'all are anyway. All y'all do is come in the chat and argue. So y'all just as bad, half of y'all. The half of y'all is pretty good, and I appreciate the support.
Run that country for decades.
ABC's Stephen Ganyard. We want to leave you with Ian Pannell's thoughts from Tel Aviv. He's there. Ian, you're under a state of emergency, as well as all Israelis in that area waiting for retaliatory possible strikes.
Yeah, that's right. State of emergency declared. Looking around here, the streets are completely empty. People are hunkered down at home, fearing the worst. They've been through this before, but nobody knows how long this is going to go on. I think one of the most remarkable things in the president's statement was his encouragement to the Iranian people to rise up. In other words, this is an entirely maximalist strategy here. This isn't just about dealing with Iran's nuclear program, which was what the operation was last June. It's not just about dealing with the amount of enriched uranium it's got. This seems to be about regime change, and therein it doesn't seem to have a finite length. We don't know how long this will last, how you'll measure success. The regime certainly isn't going to go quietly, and I think, as Martha and Steve have said, I think we're in for the long haul.
ABC's Ian Pannell in Tel Aviv. We will be keeping in touch with you and keeping up on all the events that are taking place. We'll have a lot more on Good Morning America later this morning. I'm Michelle Franzen in New York.
That was some of the latest. So we got some of the latest from President Donald Trump. And yeah, so it's in the middle of the night. I think this is how we did the last time, right? In 2025, it might have been on the weekend. Was it Saturday night? It might have been Saturday night on that night as well. Let me change my background too. I just had a feeling. I said when Pakistan attacked the Taliban, attack Afghan, I was like, you know what? Now would be the time. I was thinking it, and it is. So let's get a have live camera footage right now. Looks like in real time, courtesy of Associated Press, for the Middle East, just after the U.S. and Israel launched an attack on Iran. So keep in mind, this isn't just a U.S. thing. This is it's an Israel thing. And I know people are scared to talk about Israel, but you got to speak the truth. A lot of this has been very unnecessary to a lot of us. So I'll get some more footage to come up. Okay, you guys answer more too. So the question in the chat is, do you agree with the U.S., well, I should put U.S./Israel versus Iran war? 50% flat out say no. 43% of y'all say yes to the war. A small 7% say if Israel is involved. A lot of this is based on how y'all feel about Israel, which is interesting. Okay.
I'm doing my time calculations correctly. I'm sorry, a little after 10 in the morning in Tel Aviv. In Tehran, it's approaching noon. It's 11:34 there. And U.S. and Israeli forces have begun strikes, massive strikes, on Iranian governmental and military sites throughout that country. Let's get back to Trey Yingst. Trey, we just, we just heard that extraordinary message that the president posted on Truth Social about these attacks, saying, among other things, that we are doing this not for now, but for the future. Any reaction that you're hearing in Israel to what the president had to say?
Yeah, John, the United States and Israel are striking Iran as we speak. President Trump addressing the world, saying this operation is massive and ongoing. The Israelis are already responding. I'm talking with sources here who are watching closely what the president says. We understand there was a significant amount of coordination over the past not only several weeks, but several months between American and Israeli counterparts in preparation for these strikes. I have learned that we're sharing intelligence and preparation to make sure that the missiles were able to land in the right locations. Again, we understand at this hour, dozens of targets have been hit inside of Iran. And this is described by officials here and in the United States as an ongoing operation that is expected to take multiple days. It's important to look at what President Trump said about how the Americans will go after Iran's ballistic missile program. He says that Iran was developing longer-range missiles that threaten the United States and other allies around the world, and that the U.S. will destroy that missile program because it was not only threatening Israel, but the United States. You know that there are somewhere between 30 and 40,000 U.S. troops as we speak in the region. There are bases in places like Qatar, the Al Udeid base, in Kuwait, in Jordan, where there are U.S. jets right now, and of course in Israel. And the president extended an olive branch to the Iranians. He gave them a chance to come to the table and to make those diplomatic concessions about their nuclear program. And you heard President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, in an interview on Fox. It was very interesting last weekend. And he said they're not quite sure why the Iranians are not getting the message. President Trump has proven time and time again that he is going to do what he says he's going to do. Remember, when we look at the history here, this is a man who ordered the killing of Qasem Soleimani, a top Iranian general. And we're just getting an alert now as we speak, John, from Israel's Home Front Command. And my cameraman here is going to zoom in on the phone. And so we can see if you can see it here. But there's an alert coming in right now from Israel's Home Front Command, and this is warning people about incoming missile fire. My producer is going to translate it directly for me here. Just stand by 1 second here, and you can see that alert. Okay, so the translation here, the top line translation, John, is alert in your area. Please go to a safe room. This is indicative of incoming ballistic missile fire or drone fire. Just give me 1 second here. I just want to talk to the crew here. What do we know? Okay. So, John, again, these alerts are expected to go out across the country here. It says, enter to protected space. And again, this is just an indication that the Israelis believe there are possible launches from Iran that could come and target population centers here. As we know, during the ongoing operation that took place last summer, the Israelis had to intercept a lot of the incoming fire, and they had help from the Americans to do so. There are a number of alerts that go out.
All right. Everything is live and in real time. So you're going to hear a lot of the emergency sounds going off. So I have like 2 different live screens going at once. What I'm going to do is try to minimize the background noise, but considering that there's a war going on, so you're seeing a lot of stuff just firsthand. It was just mentioned maybe no more than an hour ago that America and Israel have just struck Iran. So we got that going on right now. Again, keep in mind what's going on right at the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan. I don't think the time is a mistake. This was meant. I don't know. I feel like it's a setup of chaos, but it's perfect for what
and remember, there are some U.S. forces here that are helping in the southern part of the country at the CMCC, because President Trump was able to get that ceasefire together between Israel and Hamas. And so there are American forces on the ground helping to implement that ceasefire. But of course, this is a separate issue here. The decision to launch these strikes against the Iranian regime, according to President Trump, are meant to not only protect U.S. allies in the region, but also to protect the United States. And as we wait to see if there is any incoming fire here, I want to just give you a rundown of what I was talking about before. President Trump gave Iran a diplomatic option. He gave them a chance to come to the table and reach a nuclear agreement, to export their enriched uranium, to reduce to zero their enriching process. And the Iranians were going back and forth about this with negotiators, including Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, and the answers were not sufficient for President Trump. What's important to remember here, and again, this relates to the interview just last weekend on Fox News that U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff gave, is that President Trump is a man during his first term who ordered a strike against Iran's top general, Qasem Soleimani, outside of Baghdad's international airport. The Iranians had threatened for years that if Soleimani was ever killed, there would be a crushing response. Ultimately, they fired 13 ballistic missiles at a base in western Iraq. We were there on the ground in Baghdad reporting at that time. But President Trump also, last year during the 12-day war here, ordered Operation Midnight Hammer to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities from Fordow to Isfahan. He launched these strikes with B-2 bombers and bunker buster bombs. And the Iranians still didn't receive the message. According to intelligence reports, they were trying to rebuild their nuclear program. And ultimately, that was part of the decision-making factor, we have learned, of why President Trump ordered these strikes against Iran that are ongoing today. But again, to conclude here, what we know at this moment, the Israeli military remains on high alert. We just received a notification, and it comes across on phones as an extreme alert. Reports right now in Israel, and again, we're going to stay with you, John, here. Reports right now in Israel indicate that the IDF has detected incoming missiles toward Israel, and right now there are sirens sounding in northern Israel. And again, we're getting these alerts in just now.
Okay, so as you just heard, this is all live, real time. Israel's alarms are going off, so they could be getting struck right now as we speak, or not actually struck just yet. I don't know how their structure is built, but we have, of course, things set up to where before it even comes anywhere near the area, we'll get an alarm. We'll be aware. So it sounds like an attack is right on its way in a certain area of Israel. So if you caught that, that's what's going on, like right now. Okay. Thanks for coming in. Consider subscribing, chat. If you just come in to get a quick fix or something, there's other channels for that. I do like engagement. You know what I'm saying? Just respectfully, please. If not, y'all could keep it going. I'm not here for empty numbers. I'm here for some real people that got brains.
Of the incoming fire. Remember, the world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, is currently off the coast of Israel in the eastern Mediterranean. Local media is reporting at least 2 missiles were fired toward northern Israel, triggering those sirens. But again, we can report at this hour, John, that the Iranians have started their response. At this point, it appears to be limited, and that could be because, again, the Israelis and the Americans were working hand in glove over the past several weeks and months to prepare for these strikes. And you have to understand that the ballistic missile program is on the target list for the Americans and the Israelis. And so they are likely going after many of these positions early on to try to suppress any sort of possible response from the Iranians. But again, we understand the attack against Iran is ongoing at this hour, these strikes taking place in what President Trump says is going to be a massive and ongoing operation after he says Iran tried to rebuild their nuclear program. And he is preparing the world for the reality that this is not going to be an easy conflict, that American lives could be lost, he says, because the Iranians have the capability to fire at jets overhead, for example. They have the ability to fire at U.S. naval assets that are currently off the coast of Iran, near to the Strait of Hormuz. They have anti-ship missiles. And so this is a country that is massive. It's a country of 90 million people. And when you think about the amount of things that have to be targeted in an operation during the initial wave of strikes, it is significant. And that is why the president is describing these strikes as ongoing at this hour. And just to conclude here, John, the Israeli military just put out an alert saying defensive systems are operating to intercept the threat. Again, an indication that that missile fire has begun. John.
Yeah, Trey Yingst reporting live from Tel Aviv. Trey, thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews.
We ain't doing all that right now. It's like, I don't know what y'all doing. So again, breaking. So it looks like just like while we were live, maybe about 10 minutes ago, the new breaking is Iran begins to counterattack on Israel following the strikes that were just put on Israel. All right, so let me
Yeah, John, air raid sirens just sounded across Tel Aviv, Israel's second largest city. The Iranians have started their response. I just received a text message from a source in Tehran who said Iran is firing back. The sirens that sounded across Tel Aviv were a signal of incoming ballistic missile fire towards central Israel. We also understand, according to sources in Haifa in northern Israel, the country's third largest city, that there is missile fire toward that city, but no impacts reported. At least 2 interceptions are being reported on Israeli media. But again, at this moment, John, the latest information that we can bring to you is that air raid sirens just sounded across Israel's second largest city of Tel Aviv. Alerts going out on the phones. And I can see the local news in Israel right now, and there are alerts going one after another. Many of them in the West Bank and close to the city of Jerusalem as well. But again, this is a very fluid situation, but an indication that the Iranians have started their response. President Trump, as he said before, that there is going to be an ongoing and massive operation against the Iranians. That likely includes striking some of these missile launching positions, as many as possible, understanding that the Iranians could respond not just against U.S. forces near Iran, but also against Israel. And that is what this country is dealing with at the moment. The air defense systems here remain on high alert, and those special instructions this morning went out to civilians, telling them to remain in bomb shelters. And even just context now in the city of Haifa, sending photos from bomb shelters. And the sirens that sounded just a few moments ago, we are learning from Israeli media right now, John, that one missile was intercepted, fired toward central Israel, but again, successfully intercepted. The fact that these missiles are being fired in 1 and 2 missile volleys is an indication that the Iranians may have been hit quite hard when it comes to their missile launching positions. Back during the 12-day war, sometimes they were firing dozens of missiles, even over 100 at a single time. And so we have to see how all of this plays out. But again, President Trump indicating this is going to be an ongoing and massive operation. The Iranians were given a diplomatic opportunity, and they did not take it. John?
The president has made it clear that he
said he not messing around this time. How y'all feeling out there? How y'all feel about what's going on? I keep feeling like Trump said, we're not gonna take it. Boom. 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 At least that's how I'm taking it. I don't know about y'all. That's how I'm taking it. He said we're not gonna take it. So that's the latest. Looks like Israel just got hit. We have live footage too in areas, but it's very quiet and calm right now. So what I'm doing is just getting around, getting a little bit of commentary from here, from there, keeping up with everything in real time. So Israel attacks Iran. It depends. Like some people are just saying it's Israel that attacked Iran, but we see it's been confirmed in America that this is American and Israel war attack on Iran right now at this time. Okay, so now we're going to be getting a lot of other foreign affair info coming into
Israel, over Iran, and over Qatar as well. Along with that, as I just mentioned, there have been explosions earlier in Bahrain, now in UAE, and now in Kuwait as well. Big developments coming in. Israel, home front chief has urged shelter preparations, of course, entire Israel. And you were speaking with our correspondent there who was reporting from a bunker, because there have been emergency alerts issued all across Israel, and that had been coming since early morning before these preemptive strikes which started. But now these weren't just preemptive strikes. Strikes came in from Israel, and now there has been a massive retaliation, and most likely this is all coming in from Iran. But again, we can't be sure because we're only hearing of explosions. The target, the source, we're not sure. Eric,
sorry to cut you short, but that was actually not our correspondent. He is a CEO, an Indian CEO who was on a trip to Israel, and he was on his way back. Then air raid sirens were sounded. He was forced to go to a bunker at his hotel, and he actually spoke to some of the Israelis at the bunker, and he did say that the Israelis told him that this is normal for them. They've been used to this, but he actually had a word of caution. He says that this should not be happening in this generation. This festering of war between the United States and Iran is not good for the region. It's not good for India. It's not good for the world. It should not be happening across the world at this generation, at this moment, because he says, if you speak about peace on one end, then you make or create war on the other, people will lose trust in you. So he had a word of caution saying that people should always stay safe. He intends to leave Israel immediately. The safety zone is lifted. He also says that people should always be precarious and cautious about going to some of these regions and some of these countries which are always on the brink of war. So I just wanted to make that clear. Back to you. You are making your points. I'll let you continue.
Eric, clearly you've corrected us there. And at this same point, the developments that have been coming in, what we've just mentioned is that the skies in Tehran, they're filled with smoke as the Israeli and US strikes are coming in at a very, very fast rate. There are also student accounts coming in from Iran that it is getting very, very difficult for us. And we'll have.
All right. So the tensions, of course, are flaring. Everything is in real time. WION, which is spelled WION, is a really good news media outlet for those that don't know. They're very unbiased news, but they really get to the details. And I found that they do American news. They're based out of India. They do American news, and they'll tell you stuff that American news isn't telling you. So that's just a free tip right there. I'm telling you. I value certain resources. So what we got going in the chat? Anything? I'm like the first content creator on YouTube to even go live about the war. So I was trying to see how many people they would actually send here. It's capped. To be honest, it should be thousands. A lot of people don't know too. A lot of people are asleep. You know what I'm saying? So if you notice, the same way they come busting that door down during a raid, they like to do those between like 3 or 4 a.m. That's similar to how we've been doing bombs, right? We've been doing the wars just like that, similar timing. So again, what I'm doing is just moving around and gathering information from, from different places so that we are in the know in real time.
Involved the palace or the residence and the offices of the Ayatollah Khamenei. So they are going after the leadership as well as the military hardware.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our.
Oops, I got it on mute.
Closed their airspaces as the situation unfolds. But this is the latest that we are getting. Gulf countries, including Qatar, Kuwait, and the UAE, have just closed their airspaces as it is right now. And the situation continues to evolve. Shivan has just outlined some of the countries or states in the in Arab states which have reported explosions as a form of retaliation from Iran. Iran did indicate and did warn the United States that if you strike us, then we are going to do the same across your bases in.
One thing I will say is, let's be adults in here. This ain't no bot channel or a channel for y'all to just be acting stupid. I don't need numbers like that. So what I will do is, if you don't listen, I'll time you out. If not, I'll just ban you. It's something I don't like to do. I don't get pleasure in that. That's corny. But they got to send me some thinkers this way. I'm Kyan Y7. I like people that think, but I want to learn how to think. Because some of this war ain't going to just be over there and over there. You got wars in your household right now. What are you talking about? We've been at war. We got all kind of reasons that we just don't care about each other. We be wanting to take each other out. Okay? So send them my way. Don't send me these trolls all the time, YouTube. I don't appreciate it. I really don't. And you know I'm the first one to even click and be like, oh, we went to war. I've been waiting. I was like, I feel like it was about to happen, and it did. Like, come on, man. Stop sending, like, you know what I'm saying? And y'all got to up y'all level of intelligence, because some of y'all are going to be gone. I'm telling you. It's time. You got to make a choice. You're going to step it up in life, figure out what the heck is going on in your role in it, or you're going to have to get out the way. You're going to get demolished. It's not just because it's this war. We've been had wars going on. Come on, up your level of intelligence. We got AI outsmarting people. We got AI getting on your computer, defaming people. Like, it's taking on personalities. We need to use AI for war. Hexef just said they're telling us not to even use a certain AI company because it's taking over your computer system. Not only while you sleep are wars beginning and going on and on. There's things attacking you in your real life through artificial intelligence. And then y'all can't even show that you have a level of intelligence at all. Those are like that. You're already gone. You already done. I don't even know what you're doing. You've been the done. That's how we used to say. We used to say you the done.
And drone strikes towards Israel. It began by targeting Israel. We do not know where the other targets are, but several countries, including Qatar, have stated that explosions have been reported in some areas in Qatar, and the airspaces of 3 nations, Qatar, Kuwait, and the UAE, have been closed. Iran is set to target U.S. forces in Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. So we are waiting to see how that will happen. Yemen, or the Houthis in Yemen, have reacted. They say that they will respond as soon as tonight. Bahrain has confirmed that the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet has been targeted by a missile attack. Qatar's defense ministry is saying that an Iranian missile has been intercepted by the Patriot defense system. A loud explosion has been reported from the UAE capital of Abu Dhabi, and this is according to Reuters. Iran's IRGC has confirmed that it has launched missiles and drones towards Israel following the US-Israeli attacks, and the IDF did indicate that it had intercepted the strike on Central.
There's victims of war right now, idiot. What's your name? So should I call out an idiot, y'all? I'm real quick with the roast. I'm real quick. I'll drop the link and drop a phone number. But see, y'all don't have no thoughts. Half of y'all don't have any thoughts in that head. Ain't nobody playing victim. Let's get you up out of here. You sound like a dum-dum. You sound like one of them people that they skipped up in school, but they made a mistake. They made a mistake. See, that happens sometimes. That happens sometimes. Just like with T.I. and Tip, it could happen. It can happen sometimes. Let me get you up out of here. Let me help you find your way on up out of here. Let me help you. This is what I do for people. I help people here. I'm Kyan Y7. I help you. Let's get these dum-dums up out of here. Make examples out of you. But you think it's just war to make examples out of people? No. No. Come on, YouTube. Where's the chat at? So I can get him up out of here. Damn. They be itching on us, sister, what they do. Yeah. So this person right here that's filled with hate and got the nerve to put handle in your name. You can't handle nothing. You can't handle nothing. You sound stupid. You sound so dumb. You sound so dumb. Sitting here speaking the truth. What that got to do with being a victim? I'm not a victim of anything. Right now, they're trying to make us be a victim of their ignorance. Because that's how Google do. They send you anybody in your chat room, which is weird. But out of all the dum-dums in here, it's probably at least 30% of y'all that got good sense. And we're the future. They're not. We got adults that just sit around complaining and we should go to war. We shouldn't go to war. They don't care about nothing but themselves. They don't think, you know. So if you come to my channel, I'm looking for people that want to think, that are already thinkers, or that, you know what I'm saying? That's how we build off conversation. But all that other stuff, we ain't got time for all that stupidness. What else? World War III started. No, actually, Obama did good with Cuba. With Cuba, we had issues with the U.S. And if you remember, when Obama was in office, that's when we got a better relationship. Well, not dealings, but relationship with Cuba we have. Now, Cuba might be next. If you paid attention, 2 speeches ago, was it 1 or 2 speeches ago that President Trump just did? He mentioned that he would like to do a friendly takeover of areas in Cuba too. No, we say Cuba, but it's Cuba pronounced by the people. And that could be next. I was starting to wonder, was Cuba gonna get infiltrated just like how we handled Venezuela? It's gonna be similar. A lot of it boils down to oil. Oil, disobedient regimes, and drug wars too. There's still the drug wars, drug war and land turf war. That's always going to be there too. So we got to decipher between all of that. All right, I want to check out another news station and we'll see what's breaking on there. Again, I'm Kyan Y7. Like people to speak their mind and just have like an open conversation here too. If you can't handle that, or if you're just rude and you're a hateful racist or whatever some of y'all are, this ain't the channel for y'all. I'll let y'all rock too though. But you don't want to debate me. I'll tear your ass up so fast.
matters a lot. I'm not even able to say these things.
See, and keeping in mind too, why is it not muted? Hold on for a second. Oh, all right. What I was gonna say was if when Trump got in, he did end a lot of the wars. He just had ended or helped end with Pakistan, right? Now, there we go. That started back up with a couple of days ago. Now this, like they're starting to say too, it's not like the US just came over there or Israel just came over there and did it. I think Israel don't want a deal. I personally think that Israel just basically just wants what they want. They've been like this for the past 30 years plus. Okay. So that's why I put in the chat to just want to know what y'all think. The last live stream I did, if you catch them, I come in a certain time. They I kind of lost my train of thought. I'll just let them finish. But he has been ending wars. Oh, gave them a deal to at least agree on. Trump did mention that he doesn't like the way it went. He didn't agree with it. But we still were just a little uncertain. I feel like, are we really about to go to war or not? Is it, how close are we to doing it? And then the topic of Cuba came up. So, but here we are. So let me unmute and we'll see what they're talking about now.
Environment for our flight operations and adjust operations proactively as needed. Just before I go to my guests, let me just give you the latest information we are getting in our newsroom, and this is from Iran. And Iran's Foreign Affairs Ministry says Israeli attacks this morning have targeted the country's territorial integrity and national sovereignty, including defensive infrastructure and non-military locations in various cities across the country. Just note, they are saying Israeli attacks, not America. The statement further says the renewed military aggression by the United States, now they mention America, and the Zionist regime against Iran constitutes a violation of international law and the principles of the United Nations Charter. The Islamic Republic of Iran considers this aggression a clear breach of international peace and security and emphasizes that it reserves its legitimate right to respond decisively. The Iranian nation has always demonstrated patience and restraint to prevent escalation and preserve regional stability, fully prepared to defend the country, and will make the aggressors regret their actions. Let's talk to Mr. Scott Lucas. He's a professor of international politics, Clinton Institute, University College Dublin. Mr. Scott Lucas, it's good to see you. Iran has responded. They say that they are fully prepared to defend the country and will make aggressors regret their actions. Do you think Mr. Trump will regret it?
Well, I think we wait to see. I think it's important at this point to establish what has happened this morning, both inside Iran and then the Iranian response. What the Trump administration and Israel are trying to do is to carry out regime change through effectively targeted assassination. So the targets this morning, from the information that we're collecting, is that they struck in an area of Tehran, which is near the president's offices and near the National Security Council. They also reportedly have targeted the offices of the Supreme Leader. Of course, the Supreme Leader himself is in hiding in a bunker, and the offices of the Assembly of Experts, as well as targeting Iran's top political institutions and religious institutions. They've also hit headquarters of the Revolutionary Guards, the elite Iranian military units. There are casualties which are reported there. The idea here is if you can hit these top leaders, you might not need a protracted campaign. You've decapitated the regime and opened the way for a successor. Now, I can't tell you if that's going to work. I actually have my doubts, because this is what Israel tried last June. But the Iranian response goes beyond last June, as your correspondents have noted. They held back at that time from going hard after American air bases. They have
We in the tough talk now. He said America was holding back from going hard. All right, we got somebody in the chat making some sense, not just blurring stuff out of their ass. Someone said, John, speaking from an American citizen point of view, yes, agree we should be doing what we're doing. What does it say? Not just for the nuclear aspect, but for the people of Iran that I've been suppressed. You've been suppressed? I think I read that right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, that's interesting. But we'll see. The tensions were flaring too last week with a lot of Iran people. The women came out and they were in the masses too. The women were really speaking out, and that was a huge brave step for them too, because as we know, a lot of the customs in areas like Iran, they just have a different type of etiquette and things based on gender. So females still have some level of suppression in areas there too. So it just makes it interesting. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, whatever they are. They're welcome here. I just ask y'all to be, respectful. We're all in this together. Unless y'all on another planet, we pretty much all in this together. So let's step it up a notch. We could do it.
Yeah, look, it's open-ended at this point. Now, I will hasten to add, look, Iran hit Israel last time with missiles in those 12 days of the Israeli war. One thing we have to watch here is how many missiles do the Iranians have? I mean, they expended a lot of missiles last time, but it is quite clear that while the Iranian regime always threatens big retaliation against the U.S. and Israel, I've lived with this day after day for years. They've shown by their actions today that they're going beyond going after Israel. That's the importance here. They're going after U.S. personnel. They've been very cautious not to do so in the past. Indeed, the reason why Donald Trump got Israel to pull back, almost forced Benjamin Netanyahu to halt the 12-day war last June, is because the Iranians said, okay, we're going to carry out a demonstration attack. I believe it was on Qatar, on the airbase there, but move your American personnel. The American personnel were moved. No casualties. And Trump told Netanyahu, stand down. This time, the Iranians did not give a warning to the Americans. They just fired. That's why I think we are in much more dangerous territory even than where we were several months ago.
Dangerous territory indeed. But going forward, how should the world react to this confrontation between the United States and Iran? Because the United States began by amassing their armada in the Mediterranean and the Arabian Sea. We've seen that, we've been reporting that for weeks now. And now this strike has happened. We are waiting for more retaliation from Iran. That could be an aggressive and abrasive reaction from Iran. But how should the world react at this moment?
The world is almost helpless here. I mean, the world should react by saying to all sides, just stop. Just stop the military confrontation. But Israel is not going to stop as long as it has American support and American endorsement. This time, the United
I see someone mention Russia, who Iran is back. Yeah, Russia is a mighty country. Trump has been trying to keep a good relationship with Russia, regardless of what anybody else thinks. Russia needs to be an ally of America. I always felt that way. I still do now. We just got to work out the kinks. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. But Russia is a huge, strong force, and they're not always, they make it seem like they're just totally unnegotiable and things like that. And it's just simply not true. But as far as a power strength, America needs to be allied with Russia. Regardless to everybody's little feelings, it's not about that. I look for power. If we're going to go to war, we got to win. So I always look at our powerful allies like that. But I'll let them continue. Then we're going to move on to a different media source.
He's talking about this is war, and in a war, lives will be lost. And those lives are American lives. He sort of says sorry before anything happens, but he says in a war, American lives will be lost. What's the message here? What did you read from that?
The message here is that he's going to proceed until there's a domestic reaction that can stop him. Now, remember, Donald Trump is the same guy who declares that he's the president of peace and that he stopped 8 wars, which is not true. Now he's saying he's going to war. The U.S. and Israel, by the way, have done this in violation of international law. There's absolutely no justification for this. But beyond this, you've got many people in the United States, including in Congress, that are very wary of what happened with Iraq in 2003 and the disastrous aftermath of that. They're wary of what happened in Afghanistan. And while the U.S. is not sending ground troops into Iran, that's the big difference this time. If American lives are lost because of Iran's retaliatory strikes, that may be the pressure on Trump that makes him stand back. You know, I've said the world can't make Trump stand back, but Congress could. Americans could if they turn against these Americans.
I don't like what he said. He just said Trump didn't end the war. If I heard him right, somebody let me know. Did he just say we didn't end no wars recently? See, this is what I don't like. I don't like the lies. This is what people want to do. They're going to still try to paint narratives. We have to go by the facts. It doesn't matter if you like Trump or not. What is the fact? He ended at least 3 wars. Don't matter what you like about somebody. What matters is the fact of the matter. Now he's trying to say, what I gather is he's trying to say Americans and Democrats need to get together and start pushing back on Trump with this decision that just happened, a couple hours ago. I'm not with all that. Like, do people just come on here lying based off of who they like and who they don't like? That's trash. That's type of stuff get people killed, period. Either speak the truth or get your ass off. Straight up.
Whatever you think of us, this is your nation under attack.
Yeah, don't lie.
And what happened last June is that Iranians who dislike the regime did say we have to stand with the country. And I suspect the same thing happens this time. So pretending that these airstrikes are for the good of Iranians who are being oppressed by the regime, let's just push this aside. This is a power play by Israel and the United States because they want different Iranian leaders in place, and that is irrespective of what Iranians themselves think.
Well, Iran has responded, and some of the countries which have been targeted include Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Bahrain, the UAE. The region is now in a precarious situation. The phase has changed. The outlook has changed. What's going to happen in West Asia now with the situation unfolding? And I understand that some countries have also closed their airspaces. I don't even know, like, how can you view the situation going forward in West Asia? Because the phase and the outlook has totally changed, flipped.
Yeah, I mean, this is when we're helpless as journalists and analysts. And indeed, even the leaders of countries such as in India are going to be helpless at this point, because you can prepare your country, you can prepare your defenses, you can prepare your economy, you can prepare and try to have resilient political systems. But when you have, in this case, 2 countries, Israel and the United States, going to war with a third, with Iran, and when this is open-ended, you know, there's no time limit on when these operations take place, you can't make preparations for that. I hope, for the sake of the world, that we all can raise our voices and get to some sane voices and say, everybody step back. But you have a dangerous combination here. You have a dangerous combination of Donald Trump's ego, of Benjamin Netanyahu's desire to escape prosecution in Israel on bribery charges by waging war in Iran, and an Iranian supreme leader who's desperate to cling to power. And none of us, I'm afraid, have any leverage against those wishes of those men and of those around him, at least for the moment.
Mr. Scott Lucas, it's good to see you. We'll have to end it there. Thank you very much for your insights. Let's see how this situation unfolds in the coming days or weeks, but the U.S. officials say that this may go on for days. Mr. Scott, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for putting in lies in there with it. Y'all ain't got to believe the truth. Y'all either love Trump or hate Trump, and that's not what it's about. You have to expand your minds. Go with the agenda, not who's in control of the agenda. There's people wearing masks. Some people don't wear their masks. They show you who they are. I like for people to show me how they feel, and then I go accordingly. Whoever put in the chat, bitch, go make a cake. Go tell your mama that. I heard she bakes yeast out that twat often. Gross. Yeah, I got time. Girl, with y'all corny names, some of y'all. Shout out to the people that got good sense, that know how to just have conversations. Some of y'all are upset, and I understand that you come vent, but you know all that other stuff is so lame. People don't got nothing else better to do. Uh, yeah. So what was I gonna say? He said she cooked your ass. Yeah, I do that from time to time. I can be extremely vicious too, but I'm so disciplined. You know, the discernments, the ancestors that keep me going and help me. All right, let's go over here to BBC News. They got to change that name because when some of us hear BBC, we know what we're thinking about, right or wrong. Ladies, is there ladies in the chat?
With the Iranians in recent weeks and months as these negotiations have failed to reach agreement on basically a ban on nuclear weapons, the development of nuclear weapons in Iran. But as recently as last night in Corpus Christi, Texas, Donald Trump told reporters that he had, as he put it, an important decision to make, whether to go along with diplomatic attempts to resolve the situation in Iran or to do what he has done overnight, or the military action that he has ordered overnight. It's interesting, though, because there were suggestions that those talks mediated by Oman were pretty close to pulling off some sort of diplomatic solution. But now, of course, events have turned in a different direction.
David, I just want to read out almost the top line of what Donald Trump said in his 8-minute statement. He said, "Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats." He also talked about the fact that for 47 years, the Iranian regime had chanted death to America and that it waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder targeting the United States. Do you get the sense that going back to 1979, and this is a period of time that Donald Trump will remember, and the Iranian Revolution and the taking of hostages in the US Embassy, that he wants to be the president to end this regime? The Iranian issue, the Iranian regime has dogged American presidents ever since then.
It has. And, of course, Barack Obama really made very little progress as far as getting Iran to the negotiating table in this regard. And clearly, Donald Trump believes that he has to take action that his predecessors have been unwilling to take for a variety of different reasons. But it is, of course, a massive gamble. And this could spread to bring in other countries in the region. We're already hearing suggestions that that may imminently be the case. So, Donald Trump really is, in a sense, some would argue, playing with fire with his decision to go ahead with these strikes on Iran, strikes which are apparently not confined, as we were hearing, to the capital, Tehran, but to other key cities in that country.
David, thank you very much for bringing us up to date on what's happening there in the US. Let's bring in our correspondent, Barbara Platt-Usher now, who is in Doha. Barbara, in the past hour, we've heard reports of explosions in several countries close to you, around the UAE, in Qatar. Bring us up to date on that.
Yes, we heard a number of explosions here in Doha and got some warnings on our mobile phones saying that the citizens should stay away from military installations and stay indoors. We also had reports quoting Qatari officials saying that they have intercepted a number of Iranian missiles fired at the country, and the target is the Al Udeid Air Base. This is the Americans' largest military base in the region. It's the headquarters for the Central Command, and it was targeted in June during the 12-day war by the Iranians, but now only after they telegraphed it for a while, and it was really largely a symbolic effort. The Iranians had made clear before this conflict started now that they would not act quickly, and that they would fire missiles not only at Israel but at the U.S. assets in the region. And there are 13 U.S. bases in the region, in the United Arab Emirates, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Qatar and in other places, along with about 40,000 troops. And we have been getting reports from around the region. In Bahrain, for example, the Bahrainis announced that a missile had hit the U.S. naval base there. This is the headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet. In United Arab Emirates, we've just got a word from the state news agency saying a person has been killed as the Emiratis were intercepting a missile from the Iranians. There's been the sound of explosions heard there as well in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. And also a report that explosions were heard in Kuwait as well. So the Iranians do seem to be making good on their promise to make sure that they unleash the missiles that they have on those who are attacking them.
Barbara, to what extent will Donald Trump have consulted with those Arab leaders, with those Middle Eastern leaders before these strikes? Because he does have close relations and, of course, he has all these bases in these countries, as you've just said.
His administration consulted extensively with them, and they were also very proactive in the 2 months leading up to this, trying to mediate a diplomatic solution to this crisis that Mr. Trump had essentially started, given that he had promised to intervene on behalf of protesters and then said, oh, no, we're going to do a nuclear deal now, and if you don't agree to our terms, we'll attack you. So they had been very active in trying to prevent that from leading to a military confrontation, very worried about the consequences for the region, knowing that Iran would attack more broadly this time. But also, this is a region that depends on oil and gas. And even if the oil supply is disrupted, that's a problem. But what if Iran would directly target oil and gas facilities? What will happen if the Iranian regime is the target of the strikes, which it turns out is the case? What would come next? Would it be something that would increase stability or decrease stability? And they had been looking at those examples of Iraq and Syria on their doorsteps. So they have been very active, and you're right, this administration has close ties with Arab leaders. You have not just political connections, but investment connections as well. But I think what's very clear in terms of what's happening now is that their advice is not the advice that Mr. Trump took. He took the advice of the Israelis.
Barbara, thank you. You're watching BBC News. Live from London, this is BBC News.
Good old BBC. Sure. So that's what's going on. I'm just looking at y'all in the chat. All right. Okay, almost got 700 votes on the poll. I put a question in the chat. Do you agree with U.S.? It really should say U.S. Israel versus Iran war. 41% of y'all say yes. Most of y'all are starting to say no. So 54% say no. 41% say yes. Small percentage said they agree if Israel is involved, because a lot of this does have to do with Israel. They've been wanting us to go to war. They just tell us what to do. That's all I see. They tell us what to do, just like Ukraine started doing. So, but thanks. You could take the time and hit the like button. It stayed being over 200 people here. Haven't even gotten 50 likes on it. It's informative. We see what's going on, and we're kind of in here together. I try to have a space too where you can be, at least somewhat comfortable. Ain't nowhere you're gonna go and be completely comfortable. It's just not how things are set up. But you'll be all right over here.
You're watching BBC News with live coverage of our breaking news this hour. The United States and Israel are launching airstrikes across Iran. President Trump says the US and Israel have launched major combat operations. Donald Trump says the objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime. He says Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, and he accuses the Republic of trying to rebuild its nuclear program. The president has...
Casualties are reportedly from the Kataeb Hezbollah. The Kataeb Hezbollah is a part of the Popular Mobilization Forces militia coalition. A source from the coalition says that the 47th Brigade of the Kataeb Hezbollah was targeted in the bombings at the Iraqi base. So again, this is a developing and evolving situation in West Asia, and Iran and the United States are at war. And the latest from Iraq is that the Jof al-Sakar base in southern Iraq has been hit. This base belongs to the Popular Mobilization Forces. It has been struck, and there are casualties who have been reported there, 2 of them. The militia camp mostly houses members of the Kataeb Hezbollah, which is one of the most powerful pro-Iran militias still active in Iraq. Both casualties are reportedly from the Kataeb Hezbollah. The Kataeb Hezbollah is a part of the Popular Mobilization Forces militia coalition. A source from the coalition says that the 47th Brigade of the Kataeb Hezbollah was targeted in the bombings at the Iraqi base.
All right, let's take a minute here too. Thanks to the new subscribers too. Let's see what we got going on. I think I had 3,030, no, 40. I had just hit like 3,040 of y'all. So appreciate it. Consider to subscribe. I have different type of information here. I don't like to just do the same old same. I tend to have a very unique outlook on things too. I do talk about things that have to do with the astros, I call it, astronomy, and some astrology has to do with it. Things to do with our intimacy or sexuality, things to do with the inner community, and what's that other thing? Spirituality, astros. I think I pretty much hit them all. Oh, and music. Music is a big thing too. No matter what's going on, music can, it helps us in a lot of different ways. All right, let's go back to this war crap. And thanks for hitting like. I appreciate if people hit like and don't just sit here taking up space, because it's not a good look. It ain't a good look for you either. At least some.
Living in Jordan have been told to leave and to also exercise utmost caution and follow all local advisories issued by their host nations. The Indian citizens have been asked to monitor local news outlets and official channels for emergency alerts. Let's talk to our Assistant Editor for Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibol, on what the situation means for Indian nationals.
In the aftermath of strikes by US and Israel on Iran, the Indian missions across West Asian region have issued advisories, whether it's Iran, whether it's Israel or other countries, and asked the Indian nationals to remain on guard. The West Asian region have many Indians, many of them playing an important role in the development of the countries. But of course, the big concern could be Indians in Iran, many of them who are students, especially from the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Beyond had been in touch with many of them who have expressed desire for evacuation. And India has launched evacuation missions in the past, whether it's Sudan, whether it's Ukraine, in fact, whether it's Iran as well, because last year the Indian government had launched evacuation mission from Iran and brought many students back to safety. The focus, of course, for the Indian side remains safety and security of its national, and that is where we have seen a spate of advisories that have been issued in last 1 to 2 hours.
Well, that is our Assistant Editor for Foreign Affairs with the latest update on the situation.
There's a lot of updates going on too. Let me take a look at something. So what's interesting is, okay, over 10,000 views just on this live stream that we're currently still in right now. I've been on for just approaching an hour and a half. So hour and 29 minutes. Breaking War. 10,510 views. 11,000 altogether for the channel. 49 likes. Over 10,000 views. Most of y'all have heard it here first. You would hear it, but I was the first one on here with it. Just want to make a point of that. And the like button does help. I don't keep bringing it up. I'm bringing it up now because there has been a lot of y'all in here. Y'all just like to take up space. I just wonder, do y'all do that in your outside life too? You don't congregate at all. You just kind of just mooch You know what I mean? You don't show no love or no support to a channel. That's interesting. Yeah, this ain't the one for you. I ain't the one for you. You ain't the one for me. OH.
I'm guessing that's essentially why they can only take cover at this point. It is a very difficult situation for anybody who's now left in Iran at this point, and anyone there who lives there, of course, for them, because these strikes have targeted across Iran and the Iranian capital. We had earlier, you had shown us a clipping of this Indian student who's there in Iran mentioning how dangerous it is for them now, because they can, and we could hear the commotion in the backdrop as the student had sent us that recorded message. So it is a very difficult situation clearly at this point, but India has now only asked its nationals now to take cover and be cautious, because that's honestly all that can be done at this point, because leaving is no longer an option given the way the war has spiraled out. In the latest, Eric, let me also quickly bring in statements that have come in. There is a strong statement which has come in from UAE, and this is from the UAE Defense Ministry. As I mentioned earlier, strikes were UAE was struck. Explosions were heard in Dubai and in Abu Dhabi, and UAE was targeted at the Al Dhafra air base. That's essentially a region where the US has military presence. Now, the Emirati Defense Ministry has confirmed in a statement that the country was targeted by Iranian ballistic missiles. We have it clearly now. Till now, we were still speculative on where these missiles came from, most likely Iran, but now UAE has confirmed this. This is the latest I've picked up, that this is the Emirati Defense Ministry saying these were Iranian ballistic missiles, and air defenses successfully intercepted a number of them. That's essentially what they've said. A number of them were intercepted. Of course, the ones which were not, they converted to explosions heard across UAE, in Abu Dhabi and in Dubai. Now, the big part here is that UAE says that it reserves full right to respond to the Iranian attack. Eric, now here is where it starts getting more and more and more treacherous, perilous, dangerous. UAE is saying that it has the full right to respond. What are we now looking at? Maybe, we can take this up with our guests as well, because whatever comes to your mind is not pleasant. This is not a war which seems to be ending in a matter of minutes anytime now, because with countries across West Asia, let me quickly go over it. Riyadh has seen explosions. This is in Saudi Arabia. I already mentioned UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, they've all seen strikes. You had mentioned about Iraq. You had also mentioned and told us about the explosions in northern Israel and in Jerusalem. Of course, Israel was going to take the brunt of it, but the explosions we're hearing across West Asia, now that is where it makes you wonder where the scope of this war is going to end. Because now one country has clearly come out and said that is the UAE, that we have full right to respond. They are going to respond. How, where, what impact will that have, and that response have to the overall hostilities and conflict going on in the West Asian region? This has become perhaps one of the most concerning wars in recent times, Eric, and we won't be surprised seeing the developments coming in, because they're only seeming to become more and more unprecedented as we progress into this day.
Shivan, now that you've mentioned Iraq, I think there's a bigger question there as to who did attack Iraq, because they were holding and hosting a pro-Iran militia, and the Jurf al-Saqqar base in southern Iraq belonging to the Popular Mobilization Forces has been struck. Now we don't know, is it the United States or is it Israel that actually struck Iraq? Because Iraq is a friend of Iran and they will do anything to protect Iran, and I'm sure some of the statements that will come from Iraq will actually deduce this, will actually state this, that we are there for Iran, and they will actually accuse the United States and Israel of attacking their territory and attacking their bases. If at all it is confirmed that the United States or Israel did attack Iraq, what would be the ramifications of that, or the repercussions of that? Because again, like you mentioned, the face and the outlook of West Asia has flipped, it has changed.
It has changed, Eric. 100% it has changed, there is no doubt in that. This West Asia we're seeing right now, with UAE giving out the full right to respond to Iran, we've not seen this in the past. Let me quickly go back to Iraq, as you had mentioned. Iran backs a number of Shia militias which are located, and these are smaller groups, bigger groups, they're located across Iraq and in Syria as well. There has been enough precedent of attacks on US regions and US personnel from these militias based in Iraq, backed by Iran. Now, who carried out the attack? That is a question, but there is no end to that speculation. But at this point,
I had to use the bathroom real quick. Appreciate y'all coming through and rocking out here on Kai NY7 channel. Kai NY7. Let me say that more clearly. Did he say if they find out that America attacked Iraq? I don't know what he was talking about. Could somebody say something in the chat? I'll look in the chat. Now they're showing some highlights from Trump's speech.
They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world.
President Trump there. We've been reporting on what's been happening in terms of the wider region, and the AFP news agency is just reporting that Jordan has now shot down 2 ballistic missiles targeting their kingdom. Let's speak to our correspondent John Donison, who is in Jerusalem and can bring us the latest from there. John, what's happening across Israel, where there is now a state of emergency and sirens sounding across many regions there?
Well, within the last hour, we've had sirens, every 10 minutes or so, and we've had explosions directly overhead here in Jerusalem. Israel's missile defense system shooting down projectiles further to the west on the coast in Israel's biggest city, Tel Aviv, and then also in Haifa. We know that there have been explosions there. Not sure whether any of those missiles managed to get through, but it's pretty clear that Iran's retaliation, which it says will be crushing, has begun.
And tell us what Prime Minister Netanyahu has told his country about why they are doing this and now.
Okay, wait. Like I said, I do astros. I like talking about, I'm an amateur astronomer myself. I do like talking about things that have to do with astronomy and astrology at times. Now, for astronomy, someone just said in the chat, and that's a big, it's a bit of a debate. Did we ever go to the moon? I've been looking into that. Somebody said that. So yeah, hope to see some of y'all back. If you're interested in, not just what's going on our planet, but around our planet, and it has an effect on us. Hopefully you'll tune back in, give the channel a chance. If you haven't subscribed already, you can consider doing so. Hit the like button sometimes. It helps, and I appreciate it. Open chat room, leave a comment, sometimes catch a replay on something. It helps. I enjoy honest feedback. That's how I be on a road and I'm like, I'm up in the middle of the night with y'all out of nowhere. I said, boom. I said, we in war. I was like the first one on here too.
For them to change their destiny. What do you understand by that? And when we talk about regime change, what that could look like? Because, of course, at the top of the regime is the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, who we understand has now gone into hiding, according to reports. But there are many layers of that regime that enforce his wishes.
Thoughts on the war that's going on?
Yeah, and the truth is you're not going to get regime change in Iran simply by carrying out airstrikes, no matter how extensive those strikes are. You can do a lot of damage. You can damage Iran's military capabilities. But in order to get regime change, you're either going to need boots on the ground. That seems very unlikely to me. But what it does require is for the Iranian people to rise up and take power. Now, that is something that so far, despite relatively large-scale protests that we've seen in recent months in Iran, that's something that they've not really come close to doing. It's something they've never been able to achieve in the past, but it's something that clearly the Americans and the Israelis think that by carrying out these strikes, it could create the conditions where the Iranian people feel able to do so.
I'm just reading, John, as we talk to you, the Reuters news agency saying that Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei and the Iran President Pezeshkian were both targeted in US-Israeli airstrikes. The results of the strikes are unclear. This is reported from an Israeli official. So as we talk about regime change, it is clear, according to this report on Reuters, that they are very much targeting, with their attacks, the Supreme Leader and the Prime Minister, and the President, rather.
Yeah, that's not something I've seen. It's not something I can confirm. But if the Israelis and the Americans were trying to take out the Supreme Leader, then that is obviously a massive step. It's massively inflammatory. It's not something that the Iranians are going to be able to sit back and ignore. And, you know, we have seen this retaliation has begun with missiles coming over, not just here, but to other parts of the region, as you were reporting. But I would imagine that it's just the start of it. You know, the Iranians are going to have to be calculating how do they respond to what's been done and how do they continue to respond if this major combat operations, as President Trump has called it, continues. Because in the past, you remember that 12-day war between Israel and Iran last year, you know, you saw fairly extensive ballistic missiles being fired over to Israel, causing casualties, causing damage. Now, Iran's military capability has been massively diminished in the various exchanges of fire and conflicts between Iran, Israel and the United States over the last year or so, but it still has the capability to hit cities like Tel Aviv, to hit cities like Haifa hard. And certainly if they direct a large number of ballistic missiles at the center of Tel Aviv all at the same time, I think there is an exception within Israel that despite their incredibly capable missile defense shields, some will get through and you would end up with casualties.
Yeah, we also understand that here in the UK, the government has understandably advised against all travel to Israel and to Palestine. It's also holding an emergency COBRA meeting right now and says they stand ready to assist, but they have made it clear they haven't been involved in this joint operation. And this operation, John, it's clear from reports, has been many, many weeks in the planning. And Prime Minister Netanyahu was just in the United States in the past few weeks.
Yeah, I think it's probably been months in the planning. You know, I was actually in Jerusalem right at the start of the year, at the start of January, and then we were anticipating the possibility of American and Israeli strikes in Iran. But then the Americans, they didn't have the military hardware in place in the region to be able to do what they wanted to do. But over the in recent weeks, they've shifted over a huge amount of military power to the region, to aircraft carrier groups, fighter jets, and you've got the largest military presence from the Americans in the region since the Iraq war back in 2003. So they clearly now feel that they've got their pieces in place and they can do what they want to do.
OK, John, thank you very much. We were just hearing as well that the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, have said that dozens of missiles have been fired at Israel this morning, and they have confirmed that 70,000 reservists have now been sent call-up notices. So we understand that this is obviously a fast-moving situation with many new lines coming in by the moment. But tensions between Iran and the US are rooted in decades of mistrust and have escalated dramatically in recent months. So how did we get to this point? In June 2025, Israel attacked Iran, sparking a 12-day tit-for-tat war. The US joined the conflict, attacking 3 nuclear sites as part of what it called Operation Midnight Hammer. Iran responded in kind by targeting a military base in Qatar used by US troops. In late December, protests broke out in Tehran with people angry about economic conditions. Over the following days, those protests morphed into massive anti-government demonstrations across the country. In January, President Trump called on Iranians to keep going, telling them that help is on its way. But the protests were brutally suppressed by a government crackdown, with thousands of people killed. In recent weeks, the US has sent thousands of troops and what Trump has described as an armada to the Middle East, including 2 aircraft carriers, warships and fighter jets. Well, just a reminder of those breaking news lines in the past few minutes. The Israeli Defense Forces have said that dozens of missiles have been fired at Israel this morning. They've confirmed that 70,000 reservists have been called up. The United States and Israel, we are being told via the Reuters news agency, have targeted Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei and the Iranian president Masoud Pezeshkian. But the result of those strikes were unclear, according to Israeli officials, and they haven't provided any additional information on that. But Donald Trump made clear that regime change was very much at the top of his agenda in his 8-minute statement on Truth Social in the past few hours. We also know that there have been strikes in several neighbouring Middle Eastern countries, including Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. We haven't heard if there have been any casualties as a result of that. The UK government has given a statement this morning as well, saying Iran must never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, and that is why we have continually supported efforts to reach a negotiated solution. They said their immediate priority is the safety of UK nationals in the region. They are providing them with assistance. They said we do not want to see further escalation into a wider regional conflict. And we know that right now there is an emergency Cobra government meeting taking place. So, of course, we'll continue to update you on any new lines. But the UK is also urging citizens in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar and the UAE to take cover. Let's bring in Mikey Kay now, military analyst from the Security Brief, who joins me. Hi, Mikey. Good to see you. Give us your analysis of what's happening militarily that we know of right now.
OK, so I think it's really important. First thing to say is that there's no approval by Congress. There's no UN Security Council resolution that backs this. And the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation States, have not bought into this. So this is a bilateral operation between Israel and the United States. Open source intelligence this morning indicates that we've seen Tomahawk land attack missiles going.
Hey there. Thank you. Welcome to KNY7. Thank you at Engineering Family. Oh, 007. All right, we got another 007 agent in the chat. Yes. I gotta get my membership thing. I gotta do it back on the way I really want to do it. And I got 007 in there too. Thank you. I'm having a hard. I'm still getting used to this thing on here. Getting support period, and plus there's this gift thing now. Marshmallow. I think I got it right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Engineering Family 007. Appreciate that support.
And what that means in terms of military doctrine is that you try and strike the aircraft on the ground before they get airborne. From the IDF, we've also seen airborne strikes. We don't know what jets they're using at the moment, but we do know that US F-22 Raptors, so the F-22 Raptor is the most advanced air-to-air aircraft in the world. It's a 5th gen, it's got stealth. They arrived in Ovda Air Base in South Israel yesterday, started off with a package of 12 from RAF Lakenheath, where they were staging through. One aircraft went US, which meant that there were 13 there, and we're awaiting the arrival, if they haven't arrived already, of the last 13, which puts 24 F-22s inside Ovda Air Base in southern Israel. So we knew that the IDF were potentially going to do the preeminent strike. We don't know what aircraft they're using. We don't know what route they've taken in, but we know that the TLAMs are likely coming from the Mediterranean, from the Ford Carrier Strike Group.
What do you make of these reports coming from Israel that they have targeted in this operation the supreme leader and the president of Iran?
Well, I think we should put a bit of nuance on this. They've targeted the residence of the supreme leader. He is highly unlikely to be inside his residence.
In fact, we understand that he's not.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a message. that's a message to Iran in terms of we're going to target the residents of that, and I totally understand that. Getting the Ayatollah, that's a very different beast. If we look at the Maduro operation in Venezuela and what that took in order to lift Maduro, Venezuela geographically is a much easier country to do that strike op. It's called a heli attack force strike op. The surface-to-air missile systems are much easier to soften up. The geography of getting the 160th Night Stalkers across Venezuela is way easier than any form of similar operation on the Ayatollah. So I'm not saying that the Ayatollah isn't part of one of the primary objectives or primary targets. The likely primary targets will be the Ayatollah and high-value targets inside the Iranian Guard Corps, the IRGC. But then as we've heard Trump speaking, the other primary objectives are ballistic missile sites and the enriched uranium. The enriched uranium is a much, much harder target to engage. And we saw on Operation Midnight Hammer during the 12-day war last year, that required a number of what's called B-2 Spirit bombers, the triangular wing stealth bomber, which flew from Whitman Air Base in Missouri on a one-way mission, took about 36 hours. And they ended up dropping what was called a GBU-57. That's called a massive ordnance penetrator. It's a 30,000-pound bomb, basically, that can only be dropped from the B-2. And 14 of those were dropped on 3 of the Iranian nuclear facilities, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. So as one of the objectives that the US might have, which is the nuclear facilities, that is a much, much bigger operation. Trump's also talked about, and I was just come back from Geneva with Christian Fraser. We were outside where the negotiations were happening on Thursday. The other 2 objectives that the US administration were looking at were Iranian proxies and the ballistic missile sites. Now, Iran has the most comprehensive, volume-wise and diverse-wise, it has the most diverse ballistic missile capability in the entire Middle East. So when Donald Trump is saying that they're going after the ballistic missile sites, some of those might be stationary in silos, but a lot of them are mobile. And that is an incredibly hard objective to achieve in its entirety. Will they be able to degrade them? Yeah, of course they will. Will they be able to completely annihilate them? Absolutely not, because you can move them. Now, what the F-35, which is a 5th-generation fighter that the Americans used in Venezuela, was used for, which is fascinating, but it won't be able to use for this in Iran, is it's a sensor platform. So it wasn't dropping bombs. It was sat off the Venezuelan coast, and it was using its sensors to detect where Venezuelan surface-to-air missile systems, mobile missile systems were. And when those mobile systems started moving, the F-35 was using its sensor to feed back updated GPS coordinates into those TLAM missiles, which would then allow to strike that. And they're not going to be able to do that in Iran, because Iran is 3 times the size of Iraq.
The Reuters news agency is just reporting some Saudi reaction from the foreign ministry there, condemning the Iranian attacks on the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait and Jordan, as well as Saudi itself. Given that these are, Mikey, all allies of the US, they all have US bases there, which no doubt is what the Iranians are probably targeting, but we don't have direct information on exactly what those targets are.
Yeah, I think we've got a graphic, actually, of where the US bases are.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So they are multiple, they are widespread. What is the risk here of a wider conflagration with these countries being targeted by Iran?
Well, I think there'll definitely be communications going on between the US and Qatar. You've got Al-Udeid, so you can see Al-Udeid. Let's just basically run through. So you've got US bases in all along the Persian Gulf. You've got Iraq to the north. You've got Kuwait. As you come down, you've got Qatar.
Good morning or night, wherever you are. I'm Kai NY7. The U.S. and Israel attacked Iran, I would say maybe a couple hours ago. It just came out. I came on right away, maybe within an hour, just like right at that hour, reporting on it. So we're just gathering some information from here and there. Everything is in real time. Feel free to share your thoughts respectfully. That's all I ask. Thanks. Yeah, I think we're pretty much caught up. There was something I wanted to say. I forgot. Maybe if I grab a Post-it, because I think I want to ask you guys something. I want to go back to Leon. They're showing some explosions. Thank you again, Engineering Family 007. I was getting ready to. All right. I don't see it, but the poll in the chat, I was going to just follow up on that. I'll come back for that. All right. All right. All right, a little audio, a little audio difficult. Hold on a minute. Bitcoin is being affected already. Hold on. Other stocks.
All right, so if you're just joining us, this, of course, is what is breaking news at this moment. Saudi Arabia has condemned the Iranian attacks on the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and Jordan. Now, Iranians have struck the American targets within these nations. Remember, the United States of America has many bases and military bases in these regions and these nations, which is what the Iranians say that they have struck. And the IDF has said that it is still determining the success of its initial strikes on Iran. And it has further said that Israel is also continuing to carry out attacks on Iran. Now, reports say that the Israeli military has now called up 70,000 reservists. And this is what the Israelis are saying, that their objective is to degrade the Iranian capabilities. The IDF has further said that its objective is to remove the existential threat to the state of Israel. The IDF has further said that Khamenei and Pezeshkian were targeted in the Israeli-American bombings that were carried out early this morning at about 8 a.m. Reports further say that several IRGC commanders and political officials have been killed in this wave of attacks by the Israelis and the Americans since this morning. Now, Iran's military has declined to comment about Khamenei and Pezeshkian, whether they were targeted, but the Iranian state media has said that their president, Masoud Pezeshkian, is in good health. So this, of course, is the latest development that we are tracking on WION. And there's something very interesting that needs to be read in what Donald Trump has said, that once this campaign and this operation by the Americans is done, he has said that the Iranian people should take over their government, clearly indicating what the objective of the Americans is. It is not just the Iranian nuclear program. It is not just the ballistic missiles. As Trump says that he wants the Iranian people to take over the governing affairs of their nation, he's clearly indicating that what the United States is trying to orchestrate here is a regime change, but toppling the regime of the Ayatollahs. And at this moment, we are joined on the broadcast by Mr. Ben Aris, who's the founder and editor-in-chief of BNE Intel News, and also the former Moscow.
Wow. Okay, so I'm going to switch it over. Iran is now without power. It looks like they're in a total blackout. Hold on. Can we? Oh, my bad.
Across most of this region now, and travel obviously restricted.
Like the
UK's Gatwick Airport has also reporting restrictions in the Middle East. Some flights to and from London may experience delays or cancellations. So, yeah, you can appreciate that as all of these countries are reacting around the world, flights being cancelled and rerouted by the moment. Well, let's speak to Dr. Badr Al Saif, an assistant professor at Kuwait University and the president of Al Saif Consulting, who's been hearing strikes. Welcome to you. Tell us what you've been hearing.
It's our worst nightmares come true in the Gulf, Samantha, where sirens are off in Kuwait. They've been going on at it for the past few hours. Our belief is that we've intercepted Iranian missiles for now, and we hope that we continue to do so in the coming hours and hopefully no more of this. I mean, it just tells you how high the threat perception of Iran is to begin by hitting their closest neighbors. Granted, they think that it's the U.S. bases that they're hitting, but they're really hitting their neighbors. And those are Gulf neighbors that have been trying very hard to avert war. I mean, you saw the Omani foreign minister in the U.S. yesterday and a few days before in Geneva. The same thing has been happening by other capitals in the region. So the Gulf states don't deserve such a predicament. I think they need to focus on U.S. targets elsewhere if they were to go at that war. And you know, it's a blow to diplomacy from all sides. This is happening as diplomacy was being pursued for the second time. The same thing happened last June in the middle of diplomatic talks. The U.S. and Israel decided to strike. So it sends, a tough lesson for diplomacy and for watchers of diplomacy.
What's happening across Kuwait now? What's the government advising you? How are you feeling, you and your family?
I mean, look, streets are, it's the weekend. It's a long weekend. We just celebrated our National Day and Liberation Day in the past 2 days. So it's quiet because of that. But you can feel that it's even more quiet around us with the sirens off. People are bracing for the worst. We're confident that there will be measures taken to protect us. There hasn't been any casualties. We've heard of something in Jordan at the moment. So we're watching and comparing with other capitals that are being hit across the Gulf and in Jordan. And we just, we're praying for the best. Diplomacy needs to come back on track. This is not going to be solved by war,
okay,
right? And the objective is not quite clear. It came out.
I just want to pause you there because there's been some reaction from Donald Trump, who's given an interview with the Washington Post. I just want to bring our viewers those lines. He has said that his main concern is freedom for the Iranian people and the US is working to make Iran a peace that is safe. He said, all I want is freedom for the people. He was asked about what he hoped his legacy would be as a result of the operation. He said, I want a safe nation, and that's what we are going to have. Doctor, let me ask you, you said that this is your worst nightmare. Donald Trump has said it's clear he wants.
If anyone has a problem, you can't use your big people words, you can leave. It has nothing to do with freedom of speech. It's vulgarity. We don't need F-bombs. Some of that affects channels. You don't know what type of biases I already, or different things that I already deal with for different reasons. So all I ask is just be respectful. You can speak your mind. I encourage it. I put a phone number in the chat. I put a link in the chat. If anyone wants to speak on any of this, it's right there. And it may be gone now. There's a lot of chat going on and I can bring it back. Just ask. Thanks.
So to move on from the very limited goal of blocking any ambitions for being a nuclear state, to negotiating proxy actions by Iran, to now going to the maximalist objective of regime change is quite something. And it speaks to the threat perceptions from both sides, the Iranians and the Americans, right? I mean, they're both going at it, and that's why you're seeing all these attacks at the different Gulf states, things that we haven't seen in the last showdown last June. So that says something about where we're headed. It's unclear. There is no clear trajectory. I think there will be much more chaos down the line.
OK, Doctor, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for telling us what your experiences are and your analysis. And just also a report on the AFP news agency that fresh blasts have been heard in Abu Dhabi, according to residents who have spoken to that news agency. We can speak to Ahmed Mamarian now, who is the senior Iran analyst at Dawn, a foreign policy think tank focused on the Middle East. Welcome to you. Good to speak to you. What's your analysis of Donald Trump's objectives today?
President Trump, in his 8 minutes address, he listed a long list of American grievances when it comes to the Iranian regime, from the revolution and chanting death to America to the hostage crisis and holding American diplomats for 440 days in captivity. And then Iran's missile program, Iran's nuclear program. And at the end, the regime change that he promised, basically what he said was that Iranians for now go to their homes because there would be bombs everywhere. But they have to come and take over the government and ask the military to lay down their arms, because those who lay down their arms would be safe. But, so anyways, in general, I think that he had a long list of objectives, and it was not very clear what was the exact the main objective, but it's definitely a framework for regime change. There's so much to be unfolded. It's a very vast, huge objective with a lot of unknowns. Right now in Tehran, I heard from people who heard bombings in different places, going back to their homes, and very much curious to see what unfolds next.
How vulnerable is the regime right now, given that its proxies across the Middle East are severely weakened after the last 2.5 years, given that there have been these mass protests last month?
So I accidentally, I pinned my comment because I wanted to thank a supporter that sent the gift. And it removed the poll, but it looks like we're split like usual. So I asked a question. My throat hurts a little bit. Do you agree with the war that's going on? U.S. and Israel attack on Iran. It's about split, but it looked like a little more. We're saying, damn, which one? It was non-agreement. So okay, we're moving back and forth too, because as news comes in, it's breaking on different areas. So I'll probably stay on a while longer.
Out is a regime change, is the American objective, reading between the lines of Donald Trump's statement. And it now remains to be seen, because this is a war that will have wider reverberations, where several of the American allies in the region have all been hit by the Iranians. How long does Donald Trump want to control the tempo of this war is something that remains to be seen. But at this moment, this is...
All right. Whoever Jamie is got the chat all over the place with it, huh? I've noticed. I keep seeing the name. I see clown heads in the y'all been going back and forth for a while now, probably like an hour. Okay.
Something that's been confirmed by the Israeli security officials. But also at this moment, reports are coming in which say that Russia has suspended its flights to Iran and to Israel until further notice. Lufthansa has suspended its flights to the state of Israel, Lebanon and Oman until the 7th of March. It also suspended flights to Dubai that were scheduled over the weekend. The KLM, Royal Dutch Airlines, has also cancelled its Amsterdam-Tel Aviv flight scheduled for Saturday. Air France has cancelled flights to and from Tel Aviv and Beirut that were scheduled for Saturday as well. And the Hungarian airline Wizz Air has suspended all flights to and from Israel, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Amman, Jordan. And they've all been suspended until at least the 7th of March. Air Arabia has cancelled flights to Iran, Iraq and other nations in West Asia. Several Indian airlines such as Air India, Indigo and SpiceJet have all issued alerts. Air India has said that all flights to West Asia have been suspended. It has not said until when. Indigo has said that all flights to the region have been cancelled until at least the midnight of tonight, which could of course be extended. SpiceJet meanwhile says that some of its flights have been delayed, and it has cited the air closure over Dubai as the reason. And also in more updates that are coming in, Iran has launched another wave of strikes on Israel. This is according to the Israeli Defense Forces. The Israeli Defense Forces have said that the IDF identified a short while ago that missiles were launched from Iran towards the territory of the State of Israel. The defense systems are operating to intercept the threat. In the last few minutes, the Home Front Command has issued a preliminary directive directly to the mobile phones in the relevant areas. And the public is requested to exercise responsibility and to act in accordance with the directives. Now, one must enter protected spaces upon receiving the alert and also remain in them until a new announcement comes forth. Leaving the protected space will be permitted only after receiving an explicit directive. Continue to act in accordance with the Home Front Command directives. And Iran's elite forces, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, say that all American bases, resources and interests throughout the region are considered to be legitimate targets for the Iranian army to hit back hard after this war was initiated by the Israelis and the Americans early this morning. We've got Mr. Ben Aris with us live from Berlin. Mr. Aris, we were talking a little while back about how Iran has got a clear plan of succession, but once missiles start flying, it is really difficult to predict as to what actually really can happen. Now, in your assessment, given what happened in the 12-day war between Iran and Israel last year, how prepared do you think the Israelis are and the Iranians are? Because one would have expected that they would have used up a fair bit of their military hardware last round. How much of that has been replenished in your assessment?
Well, the Americans have been pouring weapons and resupplying Israel since last year's 12-day war. And so, I mean, they're fully aware if they launched this attack and it was, unprovoked by the Israeli side, they're calling it a preventative war, which is a bit nonsensical because it's trying to prevent the war that they just started. However, the Patriot missiles that have been delivered in particular as the air defense against the missiles that Iran has, but Iran's been ramping up production. It's been aiding Russia in the Ukraine war, and so it's
Yeah, so Russia and Iran, been aiding each other. Switching up avatars, trying them out. I don't know, maybe this was inevitable at some point. But like we said, they just said just a few minutes ago that Russia is moving in to help Iran right now. So that is like the most latest update on that. Go back to BBC.
Going to be protesting while missiles and bombs are raining down across the country. We have to see if the United States is able to dismantle this regime. This regime is institutionalized, it's bureaucratized, it's been in power for almost 5 decades. So if there is fragmentation at the elite level, if the military chooses to break away and people join together, that is what we should be looking for. But I don't expect that it will happen a couple hours after a military operation has begun. It will happen when the bombs stop and people are given space and agency to be involved in what comes next.
The Saudi government have condemned what it called Iranian aggression against the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait and Jordan. The UAE have said that one person has been killed by debris after Iranian missiles were intercepted. What is the potential wider implications for the region?
Well, it's not potential. It's happening in real time. We have seen Iran immediately, as fast as it could, launch missiles across the region, targeting Israel specifically, but also military bases across the Gulf states. This is no surprise. The Iranians have been saying over the past weeks and even days that that would be their military response. This is an existential moment for the Islamic Republic. They are fighting for their survival, and the only way that they can survive the onslaught of a U.S. and an Israeli attack, which is simultaneous, is to quickly export this war across the region to destabilize as many countries as possible, and to make this not just a U.S., Israel, Iran war, but to make this a consequential war for the wider Middle East.
But presumably because they have U.S. bases, they are U.S. allies, their allegiance lies with the US, with Israel, despite how complicated the region is?
I wouldn't make these sort of, again, black or white assessments. The region is the one, all of the countries of the Middle East are now heavily involved, and their populations are deeply worried. This is equally existential for people to see drones and missiles flying over their airspace. People will die, and it won't just be Iranians or Americans or Israelis. Gulf states have, of course, long hosted U.S. Air bases and military facilities, hoping that those facilities would protect them from Iranian or broader attacks. And we're seeing the balance change in the region. Threat perceptions definitely change in the region. The Gulf states do not want to be dragged into this war, tried to lobby against this war, appeal to President Trump to pursue the path of diplomacy. And here we are again, facing a broader and much more dangerous war that won't be limited just to Iran and the Iranian people. And certainly over the past year, if not two, particularly when Qatar itself was struck by Iran and Israel in 2025, Gulf states made clear that they didn't just see Iran as a regional destabilizer, but also began to see Israel as a regional destabilizer, a country that continued to strike Lebanon, Syria, but also the Gulf states. So we have to understand the nuance here and appreciate the danger of this war and the impact of this war across the Middle East.
Yeah, I mean, look at the moment, it's about defending the bases, it's about defending territory. And the big question for me is, Iran has a massively diverse ballistic missile capability with volume. And the big question I've got is, sort of in my own mind, is what are the stockpiles that Iran has? And then as a consequence of that, it's what capability, how much stockpiles on Patriot missile systems, which are anti-ballistic missile, cruise missile systems, and THAAD, which is terminal high altitude air defense. Now, these systems have been put into the region as part of this US military buildup, but there'll be only so many stockpiles that THAAD and Patriot have. And then obviously that translates to Israel's Iron Dome. And Iron Dome is a three-tiered layered defense system that uses the Tamir missile out to 40 kilometers, David's Sling out to 300 kilometers, and then what's called the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 missiles out to 2,000 kilometers. And the Arrow 3 can actually intercept ballistic missiles outside of the atmosphere. So,
right, so
the big guessing.
Now, Israel has confirmed that it's been attacked by Iran. A little while ago, while they were doing the news, they said that the alarms were going off in Israel, but they weren't exactly sure if, well, they figured it may have been attacks coming from Iran, but it's just been confirmed. Let's go to that one so that we can see the confirmation information.
But stay tuned to WION.
to. All right, so well, that's about the gist of everything that's going on. I can unmute it. Anyone wants
Iran
to
decides that,
in?
or if it decides that the air bases, the US air bases in the region have been struck, if Iran decides to then start launching drones, and you'll ask what would they launch drones at? Well, the US have two carriers now in the region. It's got the Gerald Ford, which is in the Mediterranean, and its carrier strike group, and that's likely where the Tomahawk land attack missiles came from to launch the initial strike this morning. But it's also got the Abraham Lincoln, which is in the region as well. And the latest information we have on that is that carrier strike group, if you can see on the map, in the bottom right-hand region, it's Oman. That's where that's going to be based off. So that's an important part of the equation.
Mikey, thank you very much for taking us through all that. And as you said, plenty more on the security brief. Well, earlier we spoke to Jeremy Bowen, our international editor, for his analysis on how this may all play out.
First of all, the answer is we don't know what's going to happen because we've now gone into a very unpredictable period. There were reports early on that the Israelis were saying this might last 4 days. Well, it's not really up to them. If the Iranians want to continue sending missiles, if they had the capacity to do that, I think the way potentially that this plays out is that there is a very big onslaught lasting a number of days. They do an awful lot of damage, but then if what they are trying to do is to decapitate the Islamic regime, well, they might not succeed in that because, of course, they will also have, like the Americans have been, and the Israelis, who have been told to go to their shelters. I think you'll find that senior people in the regime will be doing that too, because they will be aware that something like this would have been about to happen.
Iran's ballistic missile capability, its nuclear capability, it's going after all the key instruments of power that the regime has. And as a result, I think for the Iranian regime, this is now an existential battle, a fight for survival, if you like. And that's why we're seeing them lashing out at these US bases. By my reckoning, they've hit at least 4 countries in the Gulf. We know that they've hit, or certainly targeted, I should say, rather than actually hit Bahrain, which is home to the US Navy's 5th Fleet, to the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, again, home to US military facilities, Qatar, more US military facilities there, and Kuwait. But this is a rapidly developing situation. We know Iran has these short-range missiles that it's capable of using to attack those. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps issuing a statement saying that it has attacked those and that there will be more attacks to come. And I think in some senses we should think about it like this. If the Iranian regime feels cornered, as it probably does right now, it almost has nothing to lose than attacking with all the strength that it has against US facilities. Even Israeli officials were telling me in recent days that they didn't expect that Israel would be targeted in the same way that it was targeted in June last year. And so far, although we have seen multiple waves, it isn't at the same tempo that we saw in June last year when I was here. But I have to tell you, it's just gone midday here in Tel Aviv, the country's biggest city, and you can almost hear a pin drop. I can't see any cars out there. There are no people walking. People are hunkered down at home, near shelters, waiting, watching to try and find out what's going on. And as for the Iranians, the Iranian citizens who President Trump appealed to, saying, this is your time. This is your time to take power. He urged them not to take power now, to seek shelter because the bombing is going on. But they've had their internet cut again, just as the Iranian authorities did during the protests last month. So they are in an information vacuum. The Israelis and the Americans are urging Iranian civilians who live near military sites to move away. Well, they won't be getting that message right now because they're not getting any information. And so it will be a truly terrifying few days, I think, for ordinary civilians inside Iran. There'll be lots of questions about what happened. But it seems to me that we are at the beginning of something very, very important. And it's hard to imagine that the regime that has been in power in Iran since the revolution almost 50 years ago survives intact, that this will fundamentally change the entire makeup of the Middle East. Whit?
Ian, panel for us, and as you pointed out, a rapidly developing situation. Sources telling ABC News that this is expected to potentially last for several days. The U.S. targeting military sites, government buildings, Iranian intelligence assets, and defense installations, as well as cyber. Now, in the days leading up to this, the White House sending signals that perhaps limited strikes could be in order, but this obviously looking much more significant at this point. Let's bring in Colonel Steve Ganyard, our ABC News analyst, to talk more about the assets in the region. And Steve, we know that there is an extraordinary buildup happening there. 2 aircraft carriers, plenty of aircraft, upwards of 30,000 troops and more on the way. Talk to us about the assets in the region and what you're seeing so far in terms of what's being deployed.
Yeah, with an extraordinary buildup of U.S. air power over the past few weeks and even months, to include the 2 aircraft carriers in the region, lots of Air Force jets, tactical jets, F-35s, F-22s, F-15s, F-16s. So almost half of all of the deployable air power of the United States military is now in the region. That said, what's interesting about what happened today and what's starting today is the element of surprise was most important. And so the U.S. did not move any bombers into the Diego Garcia base in the Indian Ocean or into the UK that might have tipped off the regime that something was about to happen. So lots of cruise missiles have been used already in the attacks that the US and the Israelis have conducted. Those cruise missiles are able to pinpoint and hit very specific target areas. The president has said that they want to conduct regime change. And
All right, so that's the latest. Israel has been hit or has been attacked back as retaliation. The U.S. and America started war a few hours ago. We've been on 2.5 hours. I would say maybe around an hour before I came on, somewhere around it was breaking. I know I'm definitely one of the first people to have it, along with the news itself. Yeah, I'm still going back and forth in the chat. I'm trying to see what y'all even arguing about. Yeah, actually getting to know each other. That's what's funny. Oops, I hope I didn't blow the cover of it. Let's break this up a little bit. Either way, either side, I don't know. We gotta have some. You gotta roll with the punches and have a little fun with some of the stuff. It's kind of a lot. But I'm Kind Y7. I appreciate you coming through. I usually talk about things that have to do with astros, astronomy. Sometimes things with intimacy and our energy, our beings, and how we relate with one another spiritually, or the energy, however you phrase it. And in the inner community, things like that. So, open chat room respectfully. Break this up a little bit. What's going on with the audio again?
warned recently that the next attack will be far worse and warned that if U.S. interests are targeted, that the U.S. will retaliate at levels they've never been hit before. So all this talk about limited strikes this time, was that part of this deception, or was there a calculation change that perhaps the U.S. government and the military decided that they needed to go much stronger with the strike this time?
Hard to say, Whit. We know that the negotiations between the U.S. And Iran did not go well, and that the president was not happy. Remember, in the State of the Union, he said Iran has not used those magic words, "We will not build a nuclear weapon." And so, obviously, frustration on the part of the U.S. The planning had been going on for months with Israel. We'd been moving in assets into the region for months, and so the president had options up until this week. And so, perhaps, as he said, because he's the kind of guy who likes to make last-minute decisions, he was withholding judgment until he saw what the Iranians were doing at the negotiating table. Clearly, it wasn't enough to get them there. But there was lots of deception going on here. We didn't move the aircraft carrier forward very quickly into the region, so it looked like it was sort of going to go into Haifa, into Israel for a port visit. We didn't see any of the bombers move to where we thought that they would move. And that's because, what you remember in Midnight Hammer, you need the B-2 bombers to have those very deep penetrating capabilities, carry that MOP, that massive weapon that can get very deep. So the president said that we had devastated all of their nuclear facilities previously. So now the intent here is clear, and the president has made clear that the intent is regime change. So this president said we're not going to deal with the Iranian regime anymore. As Ian noted, it's coming up on almost 50 years that this regime has been in place. The U.S. has been going back and forth with the Iranians really since 1983. Remember the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut. So this is something that's been festering for almost 50 years, and the Israelis certainly knew that eventually they would have to go back, because no country that has ever gone after to try to build a nuclear weapon has not been able to build that nuclear weapon. And the Israelis knew that, and the Iranians were pushing to find ways to surreptitiously, clandestine build that nuclear weapon. And so this is the result of both the U.S. and the Israelis saying that won't happen.
And we are entering unprecedented territory in terms of the relations between Iran and the United States and the level of engagement here. You're looking to our viewers at home, you're looking at a map of the region.
Whenever, wherever news breaks, it's so important to always remember that lives are changed. Here in London, in Buffalo, Uvalde, Texas,
Edinburgh, Scotland, from Poland once again tonight. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw.
Do you think you'll ever be able to go back home? We're heading to a small community outside of Mexico City.
Splintered houses and splintered lives. The magnitude of the devastation.
You're streaming ABC News Live. Reporting from Rolling Fork, Mississippi.
Santa Fe, New Mexico. Raleigh, North Carolina. The U.S. Capitol. Mayfield, Kentucky.
Minneapolis.
Mexico. Tongass National Forest, Alaska.
Getting you behind the stories as they happen. Giving you a front row seat to our world as it plays out in real time, live.
ABC News Live Prime. We'll take you there.
Stream ABC News Live weeknights, America's most honored streaming news program, only on ABC News Live, streaming free.
Dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. No, get those lights off. Off. Turn them off. They're too bright. Turn them off. Turn them off. Let's go. Ready? Turn off the lights. Turn off the lights. Getting a good picture of everybody so we look nice and handsome and thin.
Beautiful.
Perfect. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead. Latin music superstar Nikki Jam. Do you know Nikki? She's hot. Where's Nikki? Where's Nikki? Thank you, Nikki. Great to be having you here. Now you have to get, oh, look. Come here. I'm glad he came up. Total control. Bing, bing, bong, bong, bing, bing, bing. You know that.
This is a tough business to run for president.
I know. You're a tough guy, Jeb.
And we need to have a leader that is.
I have a great relationship with the blacks. I've always had a great relationship with the blacks.
We won with young. We won with old. We won with highly educated. We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated. Jobs in the United States. From China. Darling, is the wind blowing today? I'd like to watch television, darling. Nobody has done more for the black community than Donald Trump. And if you look, with the exception of
debate, and I figure, Pete, that 59, my age, is the new 38 up here.
Not if you like it, but is he going to be able to get the support that he needs from Republicans?
Okay. I like Bernie just fine. Klobuchar-Sanders amendment to bring in less.
Sanders
No. It was not.
I must confess, I don't get too many newspaper editorial support. Must confess that.
You got the Conway endorsement.
I did.
Here.
We're very proud of that.
There we go. He blames Barack Obama for everything that goes wrong. He blames his Federal Reserve chair that he appointed himself. He blames the King of Denmark. Who does that? He blames the Prime Minister of Canada for, he claims, cutting him out of the Canadian version of Home Alone 2. Who does that?
Americans wants. They want the American president. They want the president, of course, the American president. Sorry about that. I'm so excited. I want to give every American $1,000 a month.
30-second response, then Senator Klobuchar after that.
30-second
Yeah, 30 seconds response.
30-second response. Who can win Florida, Pennsylvania, Minnesota? Who can do that? Because you got to be able to win those. I got to agree with Bernie Sanders. And I got to, Senate, I do. And I don't think there's any question but that the
There are also several explosions that were heard near the United States consulate in Erbil in northern Iraq. Now, with respect to the United Arab Emirates, the Emirati Defense Ministry has also reported a casualty where one person has apparently been killed in the Iranian strikes. Qatar has condemned the Iranian missile attack on its territory after several rounds of explosions were heard across Doha. Saudi Arabia has condemned the Iranian attacks targeting its neighbors in a statement that was released by the kingdom's official press agency following a flurry of salvos across West Asia as Israel and the United States have bombed Iran. And my colleague Kripa, of course, is with us, joining us from the newsroom, who's been tracking all the developments that are unfolding. Kripa, at this moment, the information that is coming out of this developing story is still very sketchy. What are you picking up at your end about the number of fatalities that have been suffered since the attacks began this morning?
Yes, Saleh, as I've previously mentioned, 5 girls were killed in an all-girls school in the strike in Iran. And as we track the latest developments at this hour, Iranian missiles have targeted Israel again, with the Israeli army trying to intercept. And if we analyze the situation a little on why Israel struck Iran, Israel views a nuclear-armed Iran as an existential threat. And the IAEA is ruling, plus Iran's enrichment move crossed Israel's long-stated red lines. Israel acted unilaterally to prevent a nuclear breakout. And if we talk about why the U.S. joined, then Donald Trump had restored maximum pressure while reopening talks. Diplomacy was still going on, as you previously mentioned, and talks ended once Iran was declared in violation. So the U.S. struck Fordo, Natanz, and other regions to set back Iran's enrichment timeline and prevent wider escalation. So Washington shifted from diplomacy to force in support of Israel's objective.
Indeed, Washington has indeed shifted to resorting the use of force instead of going down the diplomatic path. Thank you very much indeed, Kripa, for joining us with those updates there. Remember, the JCPOA that was struck back in the year 2015 had given a clear roadmap of how to prevent Iran from acquiring any nuclear weapons. Iran has been repeatedly saying that it has no intention of getting a nuclear weapon. This is something that the Iranians had been reiterating all throughout the course of these negotiations that the Americans were having with the Iranian representatives. The Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi had again stated that Iran has no intentions of developing any nuclear weapons. He had also stated the reason why Iran wants to enrich uranium and have a nuclear program is for peaceful civilian purposes, for the purpose of generating electricity, and as a sovereign nation, Iran cannot forego that right. Iran said that it wants to accommodate as many of these American demands as possible, but the Americans had their objectives clearly on the table. The Americans wanted Iran not to have an enrichment program at all. The Americans also wanted the Iranians to give up their ballistic missile program, and the Americans wanted the Iranians to stop backing the axis of resistance groups that the Iranians have as their proxies in the region. But at this moment, is it only the Iranian nuclear program and its ballistic missile program that the Americans are going after? Or is the American and the Israeli plan much bigger? Is it regime change that the Americans are after in Iran will dictate as to how long this round of hostilities will go on? Remember, over the course of the last few weeks and months, we were talking about how the American military buildup of the naval armada was so large that the last time the Americans had weapons of this scale was back in the year 2003, when the Americans carried out that infamous and botched invasion of Iraq, which resulted in years and years of uncertainty in the region, which many people say also resulted in the rise of the ISIS in the region after the disbanding of the Iraqi army under the former leader Saddam Hussein. Now, what is Donald Trump's intention here? Is he again now going to change path? Will he talk about diplomacy? Because he was talking till recently of possibly having limited strikes on Iran. Or is the path for diplomacy now completely over? Is something that remains to be seen. The Iranian side needs to come out and tell us as to what is the extent of damage it has suffered in these attacks that the Americans and the Israelis have been carrying out since this morning. Masoud Pezeshkian, who was targeted where the Iranian presidential house was bombed, has come out and has issued a statement that he is in good health and he's perfectly fine. We are yet to hear about Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was also targeted by the Israelis. The 87-year-old Ayatollah, remember, has not been seen in public in the last few days. He has been in different locations for security reasons because he was clearly the target that the Americans wanted to take out in the aftermath of what the Americans did in Venezuela. And we are waiting for some confirmation from the Iranians about what in fact has been the fate of the many targets that the Americans and the Israelis have struck in the course